Welcome to Performance Car Lounge, where each week we speak with enthusiasts selling their beloved performance cars. This week, we are speaking with the seller of a Ferrari 575M Maranello F1. Before we get into the podcast, I'm giving away 20 of these Performance Car Lounge ceramic mugs. The winners will be drawn on the 23rd of December. To go into the draw to win one of these mugs, simply like and subscribe on the platform where you're enjoying this podcast and head to performancecarlounge.com.au and register for updates. Hit pause. You can do it now. It will take less than a minute. Now back to the episode. Today's car was launched in 2002 and was bought by the original buyer in 2003, which was the year when the US invaded Iraq. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was published and sold 5 million copies overnight. And Roger Federer won his first Wimbledon title. And the song that was topping the charts at the time was 50 Cent's In the Club. Today, we are looking at a Ferrari 575M Maranello F1. And we have the owner of the car joining us today, Matt. Welcome to the podcast, Matt.
Thanks, Stuart. Good to be with you, mate.
So, Matt, can you tell us how you came to be interested in this particular Ferrari?
I suppose the 575 is just one of those cars. It's my era, I guess. I'm listening to you talk about what was happening in 2002, 2003. I was in my early 20s at the time, and I guess this was just one of those poster cars. I suppose the 550 was really the start of it. That shape, that Ferrari going back to a front engine V12. Luca de Montezemolo was, he'd come in and he'd, shifted things around. So we'd gone with the days of, the 512 TR and so forth. And we'd gone back to this beautiful, front engine V12 shape. And it was a gorgeous car. I think I remember as a kid at high school, I made a stool in woodwork, and they said you can put whatever you want on the stool. And so I cut this picture out of. You'd remember we used to read magazines back then too, Stuart. We didn't watch YouTube, mate. We read Wheels magazine, Motor, Street Machine, whatever it would be. And I remember cutting out a picture of a 550 at the time and just sticking it onto the top of this stool that I'd made in woodwork, and then lacquering the top of it, mate. I've still got it sitting in my house, funnily enough. But and so that got me interested in those cars. And then obviously as the years go on, you age and you decide you want to meet your heroes, and you have the means to do so. I decided that I wanted to look at number one. I started looking for a 550, and then as I started looking into them and whatnot, the plans changed, and I decided the 575 was more the car for me. It was an update inside, which was much nicer than what the 550 was. It had a little bit more power. The engine was a little bit bigger. The looks had been changed just a little bit, but essentially still the same thing. And I fell in love with them, and I decided that I wanted to go ahead and put one in the stable, so to speak.
You touched on a few changes there from the 550, but I guess the biggest change that the 575 brought alongside the increase in engine capacity was that F1 automated gearbox with the paddle shift.
Yeah, big change.
Quite revolutionary at the time, wasn't it?
Mate, at the time it was. I mean, they made 2,000 of these, give or take, a couple of cars. And I think about 1,800 of them were F1. They only made a couple of hundred manuals, which obviously, if you find a manual one these days, the price on them is astronomical. There's been this, love affair with the manual gearbox, and the F1 was kind of left by the wayside a little bit. But in saying that, look, I've got manual Ferrari, I've got the F1 Ferrari. The F1's a great system for the time. It really was revolutionary. And to be fair, it's not a bad thing to drive at all. It's actually quite a bit of fun. The biggest problem I find that people have with them is if they try and drive them thinking that they're an automatic. They're actually a manual gearbox that's been robotized, essentially. Yes. So if you drive them like you would a manual but without a clutch pedal, they drive beautifully.
I think you've hit on an excellent point here, and I think this is what separates real car enthusiasts from a lot of normal people, is that you actually do still require some skill to drive it smoothly. You can't just drive it like an automatic. You have to think like you're driving a manual and shift the gears appropriately.
Oh, 100% you do. When you take off in the car, it comes off the clutch. So you feel it coming off the clutch. So if you want to sit there and only give it a little bit of throttle, it'll sit there slipping, going up a hill. You need to make sure that you're positive with the throttle engagement. And the same with when you shift gears, you've got to release the throttle. And that's where people come into the biggest amount of problem, I think. They don't lift. They just decide they want to drive it like it was a double clutch transmission or, something more modern. Obviously, these gearboxes were only in certain they weren't mass produced. They weren't in every single road car that was available throughout that era. There's only a few companies that were doing them. You had obviously Ferrari being the leader with it. BMW had their SMG. Aston Martin had a few different transmissions like it, but Ferrari was probably made the best of them. And realistically, if you had never driven one or you've never driven one, they can be a little bit of a difficult thing for some people to wrap their head around, I suppose.
I reckon it's great. It adds personality to the car, in my opinion. And I think it's also worth mentioning, would it be fair to say that, this wasn't a car that was produced as a race car? This is more a Grand Tourer. So it's not really known for its blinding shifts. It's more a cross-country missile, I'd imagine. It's got its, is it 379 kilowatts or something like that coming out of it?
515 horsepower in the old money, yeah.
Yeah. So it's obviously no slouch, but I don't think it's a track day weapon so much. It's more
it's a little bit soft to be a track day weapon is probably the way to put it, but it's a beautiful GT car. Out of the cars that I own and have owned and so forth, it's probably one of the best that I've ever had from a touring experience. When I say touring experience, if you want to go out for a weekend drive, take the wife, the girlfriend, the whatever, it's an absolutely beautiful car for it. And we've driven the wheels off it all over the place and absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites to go out for a weekend cruise in. And in saying that, look, short of putting it on a racetrack, if you're just going for a blad up through the mountains, it's brilliant. You're not going to be disappointed with it, put it that way.
No. And I'm sure driving up through the mountains, that exhaust note must be something that's just intoxicating.
It's beautiful. In saying that, look, on mine, I have put a set of Mille Miglia rear boxes on it. The factory exhaust, it does sound like a bit of a sewing machine. In that era, cars were really, I suppose, emissions laws had started to come in and noise restrictions and things of that nature. So they were really muted from the factory. So, we took off the factory boxes and put some new mufflers on. Kind of opens it up, gives it a bit of sound and gives it a bit of bass, and you can hear the V12, which is amazing. And it gives you that soundtrack. Obviously, look, it's a Ferrari. We kept all the original bits. So, everything's there to put it back to standard. But, it's a lovely thing to hear it as you're rolling through the gears and listening to it sing at 7,000 plus RPM.
Yeah, and I imagine when you're choosing an exhaust for such a special car like this, it would take a bit of research. What did you eventually end up going with?
I did the Mille Miglia boxes. So a couple of reasons, I suppose. Look, there's a lot of different options that you can go through with these things. I didn't want to do a full system. I just wanted to do the rear boxes. I didn't want it to sound like a Formula One car. That's not what it's for. Like I said, I take the wife out. We drive around in it. We do a lot of events with the Ferrari Club of Queensland and a whole host of things. So, we want to be able to enjoy it without going deaf, like some of them, with a Fiamengi exhaust and etc. But, I looked into quality, cost is always a factor, fitment and ease of getting it. And these are made in Australia. They're made down in Sydney. The quality on them's amazing. They're at they're not, you wouldn't call them cheap, but they're reasonably priced for what you're getting. And the fit's beautiful, And if the other thing too was if we did have an issue with the fit of them, or if there was any issues with them, then it's local and it's very, very easy to get them sorted out.
And you mentioned then that you're a member of the Ferrari Club of Queensland. Is that a really active owners group? And what sort of things do you get up to with the Ferrari Club?
Yes, super active group of people. Probably one of the most active that I've ever been involved with. Yeah, look, there's a lot that they do. There's always something on. You'd have a minimum of 2 events a month. They've always got something going, whether it's coffee days, drive days. They do a little. They don't do a heap of motorsport events, but they do a handful throughout the year for people that want to get involved. Motorcarnas, sprint day. They do a go-karting day. They call it the Michael Schumacher Trophy. They award at the end of the year to the fastest across all three. But they do a lot of that side of things. There's a lot of other events too. There's a lot of social events. They're very, very busy. So even if it's not a drive day, for example, it may just be a dinner, or it might be just an opportunity for you to maybe jump in your car, drive it somewhere. You might even just be going to a lunch on a Sunday. It just gives everyone an excuse to take their cars out, get together, and do what we do best, which is talk rubbish about motor cars, mate.
Yeah, that's really good. So for anybody who's interested in buying this car, there's the opportunity to not only have a car, but you potentially could be buying into a lifestyle as well. And for anybody who is listening to this on the podcast version and would like to see pictures of the Ferrari, head to performancecarlounge.com.au. I'll have all of the photos of Matt's Ferrari online there, as well as a link to his ad if you want to contact him and find out more. So, Matt, you mentioned previously that, back in high school, you made a stool in woodwork and you embossed it with a Ferrari logo. You obviously are a dyed-in-the-wool rev head. What was your first car that you bought?
First car. I had a 1984 VK Group 3 Brock Commodore was my first car.
Oh, you're lucky to still be alive, I reckon. Although I don't think they put out as much power as we think they did at the time.
Mate, I think it had a whopping 169 kilowatts at the time. It was a pretty cool first car. I think the week I turned 14, which was at the time was okay, I went out and got a job. And literally, when you're a young teenager at school, you're working every shift that you can after school and on weekends and so forth. You manage to save your pennies and put the money away. And I grew up in Sydney, so I would have been just before I turned 16. I got a mate of mine to drive me down Parramatta Road in Sydney to go looking at the cars and all the car dealerships. I'll never forget it. We got to a dealership called Homebush Intersection, which was right next to the big Sutton's dealership in Homebush in Sydney there. And we walked in. They had two cars sitting there. There was this white VK Group 3, and there was an XB GT coupe sitting there, which was the purple and silver with the white trim, top loader and 9-inch, the 351, the works. And at the time, I think I had about 10 grand saved up, which was a lot of money for an almost 16-year-old. But so I saved absolutely every penny that I made, Stu. And anyway, I went down there, and the Commodore was 9. They were asking for it, and the GT was 12. And anyway, so I couldn't quite afford the GT. I did a bit of haggling. The GT came down to about 10, which is what I had, but then I didn't have any money left over for insurance or other bits and pieces. And the Brock, he came down to 7 grand, which sounds ridiculous to say, right? $7,000 for a Brock Commodore.
Imagine what that'd be worth today.
I know, mate. I know. And anyway, so I bought the car. I couldn't drive it home. I didn't have a license at the time, so I had a mate of mine drive it back home for me. And my parents, you can imagine the expression on their face when this car turned up at my house. So it was great. And look, I had that car for many years. Again, I was just a rev head, so. By the time I was 17, I'd yanked the motor and we built a 355 stroker for it. And we put it sounds like we're bastardizing it now, but super gearbox and a whole host of things in it, mate, to make it better, faster, whatever you want to call it. And then next thing you know, we're down the Summernats with it. It was great fun, good times.
Awesome. And I've seen you around some motorsport events in Queensland, Time Attack in particular. Have you been active over your car ownership life in motorsport?
I've had plenty of spells in it, I suppose. Back when I was a young guy, it was all about going fast in a straight line. That was what we kind of grew up with. It's funny, we're talking about cars like Ferraris at the moment, and when you're a young guy, they're a poster car. You don't really dream about. You dream about owning one. I suppose you don't obviously think it might come true, but you also didn't see them. Like, I don't know, when I grew up, Stuart, it might have been the same for you. Mate, I can count on one less than 3 fingers, probably the amount of exotic cars that I saw as a kid growing up in Sydney. And I didn't grow up in Sydney City, on the outskirts. So we grew up reading Street Machine magazines and, Commodores, Tiranas, GT Falcons, whatever it might be. And so it was all about drag racing. So I did a bit of drag racing when I was kind of in my late teens, early 20s. Then I decided, look, there's not enough corners in this track for me. So, I got into go-karting for some years there and had some fun with that. Then I got into racing a lot of JDM cars. I had an RX-7 race car. I had a 180SX, a 200SX, which you would have seen into the Porsches and other bits and pieces, and raced from all the way from improved production to Time Attack to a whole host of different events. I've always enjoyed it. I've always loved it.
That's awesome. I hope we can see you back out at some events soon. It's been a while since we've seen you out there.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Work's been busy. I sold the race car a little while ago as well. It was sitting there. I hadn't had time to use it, and it was going to waste. I was supposed to be out there actually the other weekend. We were supposed to go out and do the Festival of Motorsport. We were supposed to take our McLaren out there and cut some laps as part of the promotion with it. But woke up that morning, it was pouring rain, and my wife talked me out of it. And then I found out the rest of the day, mate, it was beautiful and sunny. So that was bit of a disappointment. But anyway, these things happen, mate.
We will get back to the Ferrari, but you've just mentioned a McLaren, so I've got to ask about that. Tell us about your McLaren.
We've got a 720S, which is a brilliant car. We've had that for a while. Absolutely adore it, mate. Love it. It's great fun. So I suppose it's everything the Ferrari's not, mate. That probably makes sense. Yeah, no, it's a wild bit of kit. It looks amazing. The drive is sensational. It's blindingly fast, and it's got the wow factor about it too, I think. You obviously see a lot of cars around the place, mate. You've got them yourself. It's got to give you that wow factor when you walk up to the car. I think that's part of it, and I don't know if it's just when you open the door and it goes upwards, mate, or whatever it might be. When you look at it, when you get into it, it's just got that feel where it feels special. And I suppose that's part of it and part of the ownership.
I've always been a bit curious about the McLarens, to be honest. I've never driven one, and I always wonder what they're like on track. Have you done many laps?
Yeah, I've done a few laps on track with it here and there. Not a lot. It's a road car, but we will throw it around the circuit every once in a while, just for laughs, mate. But it's brilliant. It's unbelievable. The car itself, it's super lightweight. It's unbelievably fast. It just does everything right. It's the type of car you can take it out on track and you can just cut lap after lap. The biggest thing is if you're on road tires, mate, you're just starting to melt tread. It's that's probably the only downfall. But yeah, look, it's the one thing I find with it is turning off the driver assistance systems. If you want to get down, if you want to drive it quickly, you need to turn it into track mode, turn off the assistance features, and drive it how it's supposed to be driven. Otherwise, they're fantastic if you don't have a lot of experience, driving, fast cars or on a racetrack in a motor car. I think they're fantastic. I think anyone could jump in it, drive it, and have an absolute ball and do it pretty safely. But I think if you want to start getting serious and you want to start pushing it, you need to turn them off, because some of those aids that are great for people that maybe don't have the experience in a car like that, they hinder you when you do want to push it that little bit further. They cut the fun, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Sounds awesome. Sounds like something I need to try one day.
Got to give it a go, mate.
Yeah. So what we've got here is the Ferrari 575M. It's one of 23 that made it to Australia.
Yeah.
Why are you selling it?
Mate, I've got quite a collection of cars, and I have had quite a collection of cars. I want to say that I'm downsizing, mate. In saying that, I went and bought another one recently. So, it's just one of those things. You can only keep so many and drive so many of them. And the worst thing you can do is not drive them, mate. And I'm just, with the one that I've bought, I just won't be using this one that much into the future. So it's probably better that someone else has a turn with it, enjoys it. I love walking into my garage and staring at the thing and looking at it and taking it for a run. But they need to be driven. That's what they're built for.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's a credit to you and the previous owners that you use it, but it's still won silver in the concours. I'll butcher that.
We won the silver award in the Queensland Concorso last year for it. So, which is brilliant. I mean, mind you, I had it up on the hoist, mate, and I spent 3 days scrubbing it, or underneath, top to bottom, and so forth. But no, it did. It's a beautiful car. It really is, and it's in top shape. For something that's now 21 years old, it's absolutely gorgeous. And the only reason we got silver rather than a higher award was because I've changed the rear boxes for the exhaust. It's got a window tint on it, and I didn't have the original radio in there at the time. A couple of little silly things like that, mate. But the judges unfortunately knock a couple of points off on you.
Yeah, so I did notice that. First of all, credit to you for the work you've done in tidying up that car. If you're interested and you want to see these photos, the car is immaculate, and of course the interior looks almost brand new, but underneath the car, it looked like you could eat off the underside of the car. So it's been very well cared for. But also I noticed the head unit in the car fits into the stock position.
Yeah, correct. So basically, and this is so if someone wants to buy it, they want it fully original, mate, we can just pop the stock head unit back in. I've got the stock head unit for the car. I just put that in because it's a Bluetooth receiver unit that
Yeah.
looks very similar to a factory unit of the time. It's made by Continental. They're a cool unit, and they just give you Bluetooth functionality, so you can listen to a bit of music, you can talk on the phone if someone calls you, whatever it might be. But the idea is there's a patch harness you can essentially buy, so you don't have to cut any wiring. All you essentially do is pull the old head unit out, plug the harness in, and that clips into the back of a new unit, and you're not touching any wiring, no nothing. So literally, you can take about 10 minutes, pop the unit out, put the original radio back in, and all the harness just clips straight back into the back of it. Good to go.
Yeah. So it sounds like with your car, you're getting the best of both worlds. You've got a head unit that's, got all the modern functionality, but you can return it to stock if you want to. Same with the exhaust. You're really waking up the sound of that V12 engine, but you've got the stock exhaust there to go back if that's
exactly right, mate. Everything's there just to turn it back to stock if someone wanted to. And look, to be honest, I think the only reason you would is if you want to get better than a silver Concorso award, mate. And otherwise, I think you'd be mad to change it out.
And the car obviously comes with full service history. It's got both sets of keys, I think.
It's got everything there. So look, it's got it's full service history on that car from day dot, all stamped. It's got a compendium or folder full of receipts dating back, mate, over 10 years, probably 12, 13 years worth of receipts there that we've got the car. Both keys. So it's got two keys and two fobs that go along with it. It's got its original toolkit, which is basically unused, its tyre inflation kit, etc. So, everything's there and good to go with it.
Yeah, that toolkit looks like a nice bit of gear. It looks like it's in a Ferrari leather case or something, is it?
Yeah, it certainly is, mate. Ferrari leather case. You've got the Ferrari spanners, the Ferrari screwdrivers, the fuses, the works. Mate, they're worth an absolute fortune. And they're all mate, they should be unused. That's basically how it is. Everyone wants the toolkit, but no, everyone's too scared to actually pull out a spanner and use it. But it's all there and good to go with the car.
All right. And how many Ks has the car done?
42,000 at last count.
Oh, okay. So not many at all, really, given.
No, it's not a huge amount, mate. It's enough that it gets driven. We'd probably do the best part of 1,500 to 2,000 Ks a year on the car, whatever it might be. But it's enough to drive it, but not enough to be putting a lot of Ks on it, essentially. So one of the biggest things about Ferraris, they're a pain, and I know this firsthand with others that I've had, is that if you buy one that's unused and it doesn't get driven and it just sits there and it gets serviced once every 3 years or whatever it is, and they change the oil, there's generally a lot of work that needs to be done on that car when you get it and then you want to start driving it. There's a lot of these, they get put in garages and they just get put in parts of collections, and you'll see them, they'll be 20 odd year or older, with done 15,000 Ks or 20,000 Ks or whatever it might be. And unfortunately, there's normally a $20,000 bill that comes along with that to put it back into commission to start enjoying it and using it. So, putting a little bit of mileage on the car and keeping up its regular maintenance and doing what needs to be done with it, it's really beneficial for them.
All right. So I wouldn't even call it it's ready to go. It's not even a future classic. I'd say it's already a classic limited edition car. The big question is, how much are you asking?
Mate, I've got $269,000 on it at the moment, which, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, I think it's also a bargain for someone. I've priced it pretty aggressively. Obviously, look, I'm serious about selling the car. It's on the market for sale, so we don't want it to sit there forever. But yeah, at the same time, I've tried to make it an appealing purchase for someone that's looking for something that's a fun GT classic that's probably an appreciating asset into the future as well.
I think you're right. I mean, it's one of 23 in Australia, and I think there was 2,046 built worldwide. So
that's right. So I think
than that list now.
Yeah, mate, I think in total now with imports, I think there's about 40 odd cars in the country, which is still a tiny amount. They sold 23 brand new into Oz, And look, they're a rare car. I'll put it to you this way: you're not, if anyone that buys it or owns it and they go to an event, short of even going to a Ferrari specific event, you're not going to see many. We had we took it to the All Italian Day recently that had just gone past in Brisbane, and we were the only one there. It's not something where you're going to turn up and you're going to see 5 of them, that's for sure.
Very special car. And if anyone is interested in finding out more about this car, head to performancecarlounge.com.au. I'll have a link to Matt's ad and have all the details there. So if you're genuinely interested in this car, reach out to Matt and find out more. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast. Before I let you go, are you able to tell us what the incoming car is?
Yeah, sure, mate. I've just purchased another Ferrari 599 GTB. So,
nice.
Yeah. So, look, just the successor moving forwards. Always wanted one, and so I decided that that would be the way to go. And again, that's the only reason that the 575's gone on the chopping block, so to speak.
And what colour did you choose?
I went Rosso Corso with this one. So, yeah. Look, don't get me wrong. I love the I love the 575 in the black, which they call Nero Daytona. Black on that car, it is just. It's one of those cars. It's amazing. Before I bought it, when I saw it, I just had to have it. And everywhere it goes, everyone talks about how good that car looks, and no one can get over how good that car looks in black. Even the guys that are diehard, needs to be red. However, I've gone and bought a red one, Stuart. So that's just how it is.
Oh, congratulations! Well, thanks again for joining us, and I wish you all the best of luck with the sale.
Perfect. Thank you very much, mate. Really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks for joining us at Performance Car Lounge. If you have a performance car with an interesting story that you are selling, contact us at performancecarlounge.com.au.